Hi, it's Panda Movies here. Today I'm going to explain the horror movie called There's Something Wrong with the Children. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. Enjoy the video. The movie started with two couples on a weekend trip in a cabin, Margaret and Ben and Ellie and Thomas. Along with them were Ellie and Thomas's children, Lucy and Spencer. Thomas planned for them to have a hiking activity tomorrow, but the rest of them didn't like the idea. Margaret and Ben started noticing Ben and Ellie being cold with each other, but they left before it could even escalate. The next morning, they went on a hike in the middle of the woods, where they came across an old ruin. They entered the building and found it to be very abandoned. They then found a room with a deep hole in the middle, and they thought it was odd. The kids then started to act weird and pointed down the hole, so Ellie had to pull them away from it. Moments later, both of the kids' noses bleed, and they immediately leave the ruin. When they got back, the adults gathered for drinks outside while the kids were sleeping. Margaret and Ben noticed Ellie and Thomas's treatment toward each other and had to separate them and keep them away from each other. While they were away from each other, Ellie told Margaret why she and Thomas became distant, while Ben and Thomas talked about if he and Margaret planned on having kids. Later that night, they were gathering around a bonfire when Margo announced that the kids would stay with them for the night, and the parents both agreed. Later that night, while they were playing a card game, Lucy and Spencer both started showing odd behavior, like Lucy suggesting that they go back to the ruin and see the hole again, and Spencer hissing at Ben when he tried getting the cards from him. When the kids both went to bed, Margo and Ben stayed outside as they talked about the possibilities of them having kids, and if they would have enough time for them in the future. The next morning, they panicked when they noticed the kids were gone and nowhere to be seen inside the house. They then assumed that they went for a walk when they saw the kids' shoes gone. Thomas went into the woods and figured they might be back at the ruins. When he got there, he found the two kids near the hole. Before the kids jumped in, they described it as brilliant. Margo called Ben for updates, but Ben couldn't utter a word from what he saw. When he returned, he was shocked to see the two kids running out of their parents' cabin. Meanwhile, Margo was relieved that the kids didn't go missing. Thomas asked if the kids were okay, and the rest of the group was a bit confused by his question. When Ben went up to the kids to ask them about where they were that morning, they started acting odd and not at all like themselves. They started talking about a place that glows and confessed that they saw something beautiful down the pit. For the rest of the day, Ben was very troubled and disturbed because he clearly saw that they jumped down, and Margo assumed that it was just because of his mental condition. The kids began to act strangely once more, especially when Lucy opened a beer bottle against the table and poured it perfectly into a cup, and Spencer held Ben's mood stabilizer bottle empty. Fearing that they might do something dangerous with the pills, Ben quickly snatched the bottle from Spencer, making him exclaim in pain, so the parents got angry with Ben. Ben couldn't hold it in any longer and then told them about Lucy and Spencer running away earlier that morning, and they jumped in the pit in the ruin. Ellie and Thomas were fuming when they discovered that they'd just let the kids go out by themselves and judged them based on their lack of responsibility, which led to an argument. Then, the argument became so personal that they pinpointed each other's mistakes. When Ben went back inside, the kids were there and promised to tell him what happened in the ruin. When Lucy was about to tell him, Spencer grabbed a mini shovel and hit him in the side. When Ben was trying to get the shovel from Spencer, he accidentally hit him on the stomach, making Spencer choke. The rest of the group hurriedly came in and tried helping Spencer, but he died shortly. Ellie and Thomas were furious and kicked Ben out of the cabin. Later, Ben was reported to the police and Margo found out she was pregnant. Later that day, Ben brought Margo to the pity to show the bodies of Lucy and Spencer to prove that he was not crazy. When they got there, the bodies were nowhere to be found, and Margo told him that it was all his doing and thought that he was just making excuses to not be held accountable. Margo left shortly after while Ben stayed behind. When she returned, she took a sip of wine and found Lucy outside. Lucy invited Margo to show her something in the woods, but was stopped by Thomas because he no longer trusted her, so Lucy took Thomas instead. Back at the cabin, while Ellie was mourning, Spencer suddenly woke up and grinned. When Margo went back inside the cabin, she discovered that both Spencer and Ellie had disappeared. Margo called Thomas, but he was not picking up and heard his phone ringing into 5 in the middle of the woods. When she went to find Ellie in the cabin, she found her tortured and bloody under the bed. Before he could even tell Margo what happened, she died. She then saw Spencer at the end of hall with blood all over and acted like he's not human. Whenever Margo was about to get close to the door to close it, Spencer went nearer, but Margo was able to close and lock the door. She then managed to go out to the living room where she spotted Lucy walking by the window and saw that her shadow looked like an insect. Margo hid behind the kids until she was able to get the keys and run out. She then met the police that they called earlier and reported everything to her. When the police came in and investigated, she saw nothing. Moments later, the police were suddenly dragged inside the house by a force. Margo then ran to the car, but the kids spotted her. She hid under the car and called Thomas's phone to distract them. When Margo was about to drive off, she saw Ben walking inside the cabin, so she exited the car and went inside. She then noticed that Ben was acting odd and realized that he had become like the children. Before Margo could escape, they fought for a while, and she managed to injure him by stabbing him with a machete on the shoulder. When she was running out the door, Lucy made her trip, and she hit her side against the railing. She then woke up in the ruin, with a dead Ellie beside her. When the kids were busy dragging Ellie's body to the pit, she went up to them and pushed the kids down. She then went back to the cabin, where Ben was about to kill her, but Thomas tackled him down so she could escape. As Margo was driving, she saw Lucy, Spencer, and Ben holding hands to block the street. The movie ended with Margo holding a flower as she was about to run them over.